Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to talk about our quadratics, which we talked about fairly recently, so hopefully you remember most of it. Remember, we have our axis of symmetry, and axis of symmetry is the halfway point where we could mirror the parabola on both sides, right? And we show that by a dotted line on the graph. Once we find the axis of symmetry, we can find the vertex. The axis of symmetry is our x point of our vertex, which is why I kind of placed it here. And then we plug whatever that x value is into our equation to get out our y value. So let's practice this and graph all of it. So if we have 2x squared minus 6x minus 8, first thing I need to do is find the axis of symmetry. So x is equal to negative b over 2a. Remember, the number in front here is a, the number in front of x is b, and this is c. We don't use c in this section, but you will use c later in Algebra 2. So we're going to have negative 6 over 2 times 2, because b is negative 6 and a is 2. Remember, we always take the signs in front of our numbers as well. So this would be a positive 6 over 4, which is going to reduce to 3/2. And just for ease, we're going to use 1.5, okay? Now to find our vertex, we need to plug that x value in. So we're going to have 2 times 1.5 squared minus 6 times 1.5 minus 8. Now, if you have a graphing calculator or a scientific calculator, you can just type all of this in. So I'm going to have to do 2 times parenthesis 1.5 squared minus 6 parenthesis 1.5 minus 8. If you don't have that kind of calculator, you can just type it in individually, doing the square part first and then multiplying and then adding or subtracting. So we get negative 12.5. So I have 1.5 comma 12, negative 12.5 as my vertex. And remember, when we're graphing it, we will draw a little graph, and we know 1.5 is my axis of symmetry, which I do as a dotted line here. Okay, and then we're going down to 12.5, so I'm going to count by 2's here. So this will be 1, 2, and this will be negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, negative 8, negative 10, negative 12, negative 14. So 12.5 would be somewhere right about there. Okay, and I do know that this parabola is going to open upward because this a is positive. If it was a negative 2, I know it would have opened downward. Okay, and now we need to find another point. Okay, so by doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick x equals 0. So if x equals 0, I'm going to have y equals 2 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 minus 8. This becomes 0, this becomes 0, so I have the point 0, negative 8. So I'd plot the point 0, negative 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, which would be here. And since that's 1/2 away from my axis of symmetry, I'm going to go 1/2 on the other side. So I'm going to have the point 1, negative 8 as well, because that axis of symmetry is a perfect mirror. And then I can just connect my points. Remember, this is going to make a U shape, so do kind of curve it at the edge there. It's not going to be a sharp point, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? And then remember, we can identify zeros as well here. So remember, zeros are where the parabola crosses the x-axis. A lot of you guys had issues with that on the one assignment. You also gave me the y-intercept, but the zeros are only the x-intercepts. Okay, so if you are choosing to take the exam and making those task cards, make sure that when you create your answer, you are not including the y-intercept. It is only the x-intercepts. Okay, so here it looks like it's a little bit less than 2 and maybe a little bit more than negative 2. Okay, but usually you would give a graph of those until you get to Algebra 2 and actually learn how to solve all of those. Okay, one other thing we talked about in this section that I did not put on the notes yet is solving for quadratics. Like if you have x squared minus 1 equals 8 and you want to solve. Remember, we go ahead and get that, I'm sorry, we're going to add 1 both sides. We're going to get that x squared by itself. 8 plus 1 is 9. Then we're going to square root both sides. So x would equal plus and minus 3, because you can square a positive 3 and get 9 out, and square a negative 3 and get 9 out. So do remember, when you're solving these, you should get 2 solutions or no solution.